Let me just stop. Y'all will just have to look at me without makeup on. Good morning. Let's see. All right. I don't see any questions. So how about I just give you, does anybody have a specific question? Hi, Susan. Hi, Cheryl. Nice to meet you. My sunshine Bronc. Hello there. How are y'all? All right. So nothing new. He said he would tell us later that there was something. All right. I'll tell you something new. Thank you for that. So I wouldn't mind your crying told me to come here. Perfect. Thanks, Michael's mom. Good morning. All right. So I'll get started. So since a lot of you are new here, let me just give you the background on me and how I relate to Amy Bradley. Amy and I moved to the area in the 8th grade. So all of our friends in this group, they've all been to school since, like, some of them even went to elementary school together, but a lot were in middle school. But then when we went to high school together, Amy was with me over at Manchester High School in 9th and part of 10th grade. Then there was something that happened with her basketball team, and she was then going over to Byrd High School. She still lived in the neighborhood, though. They did not move. So we still saw Amy and Brad every single day after school. Amy and Brad went to Byrd, but still remained in Creekwood. I lived in the neighborhood. Sorry. I lived in the neighborhood directly beside Amy and Brad's neighborhood, which was Creekwood. And Creekwood, if you remember being kids, there was always one neighborhood that was amazing. That was Creekwood. Creekwood had the volleyball courts. Creekwood had the pool. Creekwood had basketball. I mean, had everything. So after school, we all congregated in Creekwood and we all grew up together. Amy went off to college. I was here and I went to VCU, but she went to Longwood. When she came back, she was working at Applebee's. I also worked at Applebee's. We did not work at the same restaurant, but I would go over, you know how restaurant people are. You know, we kind of gravitate from one to the other and do circles. And then she went to work at Ruth Chris. I guess that would have been 1997 that she went to work there. I had, at that point, had started a job in radio, and Ruth Chris was one of my clients, ironically. So when I would go in there to work on their advertising, Tom, who was Amy's boyfriend at the time that she went missing, was one of the managers that I would work for, but Amy worked there. Anyway, and then, of course, y'all know the rest. I work with the family now in just getting out information. We've all been here. There's a whole slew of us around here that, again, grew up with the Bradleys, know the Bradleys, do what we can. But after the Netflix show last year, I kind of jumped in and took a different role because I am on social media. I got Brad over here on TikTok, and we've done a lot. On our YouTube channel, there are some lives that Brad and I did right after the documentary. I mean, it goes back a year. It's almost a year since that show came out. There were a lot of things that came up in that show that were not portrayed correctly. A lot of you might even be going, Tom who? Tom was Amy's boyfriend, and he was interviewed for that Netflix show for 5 hours, and they did not even use 5 seconds of his interview. They talked to ex-girlfriends. Amy was bisexual. She came out in 1995. That whole portrayal in that Netflix show that her parents weren't loving and accepting was all sensationalism. That is not true. We live here. We know Ron and Iva. We know Amy and Brad. That story that was portrayed in that Netflix show is not true. And she'd come out years ago. So if the Bradleys really had any problem with her sexuality, they certainly wouldn't have paid thousands of dollars to take their daughter on the cruise with them. So anyway, that's a whole other story, and we've talked about that ad nauseum. So I'm just going to move on. All right. Let's see. I'm sorry, I was just trying to tell you who I was and where I'm at. So I'm just scrolling back real quick before I get into the new info to see if I missed anything. And you know what? Here's what I will tell you. I will download this when I'm done. And if I did miss anybody's, is the FBI in charge of Guthrie? This is not about Nancy Guthrie. This is about Amy Bradley. So I'm not sure. Okay, if I did miss anybody's questions, I promise you, I'll go back through and I'll message you directly. But let's just get to the newest update. I'm going to tell you exactly how it went down, because a lot of people are like, why are we just learning about it? Well, quite frankly, it's because I just learned about it. And I'm the one that gets on social media and kind of talks to everybody. Brad is a assistant to a surgeon. He's not on social media. Iva and Ron are not, I mean, they're in their 70s. They don't do social media like I do. So when I heard about this, I got in touch with Grind and I was like, oh my God, I think I know now why Amy left that cabin. And I just realized it. So I've always thought, because I am someone that gets seasick as well on a cruise ship, that the reason why Amy left that room was to go get Dramamine. And I don't know why I've always felt that, but it's because of my own personal experience. Everybody told me I would never feel a ship, and they were wrong. They were wrong. I definitely felt the ship, and I definitely had to keep going to get Dramamine. I was like, whatever she left that room for, she left intending to come back quickly. Well, last week, if you didn't hear, you can look it up, but last week, 2 men who had raped a 15-year-old child on the same ship, on the same Royal Caribbean ship, the Rhapsody of the Seas, but in 2003, they finally got caught and they were convicted last week. So if you look that up, look up 2 men, Royal Caribbean, Rhapsody of the Seas, 15-year-old girl being raped. Back then, the FBI had boarded the ship, had done DNA testing, taken the swabs of those 2 men, and while that's being processed, I guess to, be able to charge them officially, Royal Caribbean flew one of the men on home and was like, go on and get out of here, right? And then allowed the other one to walk off the ship, who then, ran. So for the past 20 years, these 2 men have not been found. They just got found. They just got convicted. So in the middle of us having that conversation, there's a group chat that's going on. I think there's 5 or 6 of us on there. Ron is on there, Brad is on, and myself, a couple of others. And we were talking about that. And my comment was, where were the parents, though? Yes, those men are the ones that actually did the crime. But where were those parents? It's 3 a.m. and a 15-year-old is getting raped. And the child was drunk. So that's also another part with Royal Caribbean. You're on a cruise ship. Who gave her that alcohol? Royal Caribbean. Anyway, when I said, where were the girls' parents, it triggered something in Iva. And Iva just starts talking on our group chat and was like, well, Sandy, those cruise ships always make you feel like you're safe. You're on a ship. Where can they go? Of course, it's okay. She said they give you that false sense of security. And I was like, yeah, that's true. And then she says, that's kind of like Bruce, who was out there looking for his son when he saw Amy. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? Who's Bruce? I don't know about Bruce. She's like, I've never told you about Bruce. And I'm like, no. So she backtracks and she's in this text message telling us, and she says, Bruce is the guy that his son had met a girl from Chicago, and they had been hanging out the night before, and the dad said, yes, but you got to be in by 2, and he came in by 2. So he had the same rules the next night, and he says, it's fine to hang out, but you need to be back in the room at 2 o'clock. Well, his son Ryan did not come back to the room, and it's 2 o'clock, so puts on his shoes, I'm assuming, and puts on his clothes and goes out because his son is not back in the room, which is why he says he knows it was in that 2 a.m. hour. In the notes that Iva found recently, it says that he believes it was between like 2:10 and 2:20, but he didn't have a watch. He wasn't like this. So we just know it's in that 2 a.m. hour, roughly. When he goes out looking for Ryan, he ended up running into Amy. And the reason why he knew Amy was because on Sunday, they had been at sea. That's the day when they leave Puerto Rico and they're at sea all day headed towards Aruba. And they were all corralled in the pool, families striking up conversations with other families, when you're all hanging out. And he was actually in the food industry business. So he started talking to Amy because Amy worked at Ruth Chris. So that's how they knew each other. And Bruce also said that the next night when they're in line to take the photos on Monday night, that they were 2 people. Either Brad and Amy were 2 people in front of him or 2 people behind him. But anyway, he had talked to them again in that line when they were getting their pictures taken on Monday night. So then on Tuesday morning, when he's out there roaming around at 2:20 in the morning, whatever time it is, and says, he sees Amy, it's kind of like, oh, well, hey. And she said, hey. And she said, oh, I'm looking for a match. And then he went, oh, well, I'm looking for Ryan. He said he told her to go to maybe try the purser's desk or maybe somewhere they might have some matches. So that was it. Iva telling us that story was just to say that kids are out there roaming around all the time, So that parent of that 15-year-old girl probably thought their daughter was fine because she's on a ship. And so Iva was just relaying the story about Bruce and Ryan just to simply say, hey, there was a dude out there, that morning, looking for his 14-year-old son. Well, after that group chat happened, it's like one of those things that once somebody's given me new information, I'm like, oh my God. Why was she looking for a match? Most people don't say, are you looking for a match? They say, I'm looking for a light. I also know that Amy had money in her pocket because Ron has said he gave Brad and Amy $100. So I know that Amy had money. Even if she broke that 100, she hadn't spent it. So I'm like, she had money in her pocket. Why didn't she just buy a light? Why was she out there looking for matches? So then I started doing the research and I dug in. And if anybody can prove me wrong, feel free. Because I'm telling you, I have done research on this for well over a week. I have yet to find anything that does not agree with what I'm saying. But I am telling you, if you can prove me wrong, please do. This is why we use social media. But everything that I have looked at for Rhapsody of the Seas, I went back through the booklet that actually Iva has. It's a 44-page booklet on the Rhapsody of the Seas. Those stores wouldn't have been open at 2:20 in the morning. It says that the stores typically close between 10 p.m. and midnight is what it says. So if she left the Viking Lounge, which she had been at, to go smoke and needed a lighter, even though she had money in her pocket, she couldn't have bought one because the tobacco and liquor store would have been closed at 2:20 in the morning. There's only one store on the whole ship that sells that stuff. So I'm like, okay, wait a minute. She's looking for a match. That means that store was closed. Otherwise, she would have just bought a lighter. Nobody goes around looking for matches. Your first thought is to go buy a lighter. She had a lighter. Clearly she had a lighter. It either got wet, it stopped working, it ran out, she lost it, whatever. But at 2:20 on Tuesday, March 24th, she's out there looking for a lighter. So I can't find anything that proves me wrong that says that the stores would have been open. Everything that I have read says the stores would have been closed. And then I thought, well, wait a minute, when would the stores open? And immediately when I started telling people this story, they're like, oh yeah, at 5:30 to 6 a.m. when she left, the stores were probably opening. No, they weren't. And Amy probably would not have known that because it was her very first cruise ship. She would not have known the rules that the stores can't be open when you're in port. All the stores are closed. So they reached the mouth of the canal several hours before. Remember, they had to wait a while and then they got pulled through the canal and that takes like an hour. So at 5:30, 6 o'clock, they're getting ready to pull up to the dock. The stores would have been closed. They wouldn't have opened that day because they're now in port. So even if she left the room, if she woke up and was like, crap, I'm still in the same predicament, I don't have a lighter. If she didn't have a lighter at 2:20 and was looking for matches, she didn't magically make a lighter between 2:20 and 3:40 when she went to that room. So even if someone gave her a light, even if she found matches at 5:30, 5:45, she still doesn't have a lighter. She's still in the same predicament because she's on a ship that the stores aren't open. But I can imagine that she got up and she went to look for that lighter because what does every smoker do? They wake up and before they do anything else, they smoke a cigarette. I know firsthand the smokers in my lives and how they work. My ex-husband was a smoker. My father was a smoker. They wake up, they smoke a cigarette before they even go to the bathroom. If she woke up out there and still didn't have a lighter, she is a considerate person. She's not going to wake up Brad and be like, hey, dude, I need your lighter. She's not going to do that. That also tells me why she left that door open, because she was coming right back. Now, people will say, well, you can't smoke on that balcony. They tell you not to smoke on any balcony, don't they? They tell you not to smoke in hotel balconies. They tell you not to, but we all do. And I say we all do because my husband smoked. And I know when we went on our trips, he still smoked out there on that balcony. So the fact that, here's why I know that they smoked out there on that balcony at some point. Never, ever in 28 years have you ever heard Ron Bradley, Iva Bradley, or or Brad Bradley say that their first instinct when Amy wasn't in the room was that she must have gone out to smoke in this designated smoking areas. That's never been said. That's never been said, so that tells me they were smoking out there on that balcony since they got on the ship. It is what it is. It's telling the truth. But if she woke up that morning and didn't have a lighter, then she's going on searching for one. She thinks the stores are open because now it's close to 6 a.m. She didn't know the rules. It's her first cruise. She kept asking Brad all of the questions, like, what about this? What about that? She had no clue that those stores would still be. So that's why she's out there. And she had been hanging out with people on that staff. I'm not even going to say his name, but she had been hanging out with him. Her guard would have been down with him. And if he said, what are you doing out here? And she said, I'm looking for a lighter, but the stores are closed. I bet there's some in the Viking Lounge. And if you do the research, it says that matches are at the purser's desk and they're in the bars. So she might not have thought to ask for it when she was up in the Viking Lounge. That's why she was downstairs on the 4th floor looking for matches. Probably didn't even think about it. I think she went down because she thought she was going to go to a store. And that's when she ran into Bruce. So in my mind, I now have a logical explanation as to why she would have left that room. If she didn't have a lighter at 2:20, then she did not have a lighter at 3:40, and she certainly would not have a lighter at 5:45 because those stores were never open. So that's where I'm at with all of it. So I'm not putting out Bruce's last name or his son. I did find them last week because I wanted to confirm everything. And Iva, of course, has his testimony. And as usual, did the FBI ever contact him and speak to him? No. And I'm like, if they had, they probably would have known. That's why she most likely left the room. That's the most logical explanation. Once you know that she didn't have a lighter at 2:20, everything else now makes sense to me as to why she left that cabin. So I've got a lot of messages, guys. I'm sorry. Let me scroll through and see if I've missed any questions. That makes perfect sense. I know. As soon as I'm telling you, I talked to Iva almost every single day of my life. And most days, I listen to her multiple times a day. Oh, sorry, Grind. Do you want to come up? I was running my mouth. You know how that happens. So come on up if you want, if you're still here. I guess he's mad at us now. He left. All right. Standy still thinks, oh my God, I'm seeing all of his messages now. If anyone sees him, tell him I did send the invite. My bad. Okay. So no. Okay. Well, come on up if you want to come up. I told you, come on. So that's it. So anybody have questions about the update? And of course, yes, I did reach out to Grind. He has I'm not dumb. He has the largest platform. He's a complete advocate for our family. I say the Bradley's our family to all of us here. And yeah, he does cover her case. He didn't just cover it and drop it and move on. He's continued to stay on top of it. So I did reach out to him, when all of this was going down. And I'm like, oh my God, I think I know now with 100% certainty why she would have left that room. I've never known that story. And had that other story about that child getting raped, last week and those men finally being, found and convicted, would I still not know about Bruce? I don't know. Iva has a million things in that brain of hers. Grind even said the other day, he's like, you think we should hypnotize Iva to see what else is locked in there? But in a year's time, that story about Bruce had never been brought up. And Iva hadn't thought about it the way I did because she was like, oh, that was before she went missing. So it's great that he saw her at 2:00, but she went back to the Viking Lounge. She comes back to the cabin. It's then she goes out. So she wasn't even thinking anything about Bruce. Like it's great that he saw her kind of thing, but I'm looking for when she went missing. But when I said the stores were closed, Iva, she couldn't have bought a lighter. That's why she went back out. It was like, oh my God. And again, if the FBI had done their job and had actually spoken to Bruce and went down the same rabbit hole that I did and figured out that the stores weren't even open. They weren't open at 2:20. They're not open at 5:45, 6 a.m. They probably would have figured that out before I did. But here we are 28 years later. So, debating the facts of the missing teen. Oh, no, that's an AI summary. I'm like, what are we talking about here? Amy's mom. Amy's mom is Iva. I'm very sorry. Yes, Iva Bradley is the mother. Ron Bradley is the father. Brad Bradley is the brother. No, he's not. His name is not Brad Bradley. His name is Ronald Bradley Jr., but his nickname was Brad's, and that stuck. His mom nicknamed him Brad when the day he was born. I want to meet Iva. Well, you should have come down here because you've been invited 100 times. Grind. So come on down anytime you want. Let's see. So, all right. Clearly, Laugh and Grind was being a comedian over here. I see everybody. He's amazing. So, do I know for a fact 100% that that's why Amy left the room? No. Do I think it makes the most logical sense now? Because we've never known, like, she didn't go to take pictures because her camera was still in the safe. Could she have gone to get coffee? Yeah. Could she have gone to whatever? Yeah. I mean, we're still going to speculate. But now that I know she didn't have a lighter at 2:20 and she was out there looking for matches, you're not going to convince me now that she wasn't out there looking for a lighter at 5:45. I just don't think she knew the stores would be closed. You got to think about that too. When she was at sea on Sunday, the stores were open. The stores are always open when you're at sea, and they stay open typically, it says, until 10 p.m. or midnight. So on Sunday, the stores were open. Even if she did run by the stores, even if she walked past them, the stores were open. Then they got off that boat on Monday when they were in Aruba. She wouldn't know. She probably wasn't even paying attention to those stores being closed. Let's be honest. They got up. They got off the boat. They were in Aruba. Remember, they even got lost in Aruba. So they got on that boat pretty late. And then they come in. They're showering. They're going to their formal dinner. They're taking photographs. They're going up. She probably had no clue that when those stores closed, 10, if they closed at 10 p.m. or they closed at midnight, she's up there at the luau. She's up there having the best time of her life doing the limbo contest with Brad and hanging out with her mom and dad and all of that. So she probably had no clue that the stores were closing. So Iva and I both believe now, after figuring this out, that video that Chris Fenwick has where it shows Amy go over to the elevator and she's by herself. She was dancing and like she scoots off and goes down. She didn't go and tell anybody she was leaving. She wasn't. So that tells me she had every intention of coming back. So I think that video we now have of Amy getting on that elevator is probably when she went down at 2:20. That's what I'm thinking. That's when she goes down. She runs into Bruce. She says she's looking for a match. She goes on her merry way. I bet you any amount of money that's what it is. And again, she didn't find a lighter. She couldn't buy a lighter. She had money. Nobody goes looking for matches if you have money in your pocket and a store is open. You're never, ever going to make me believe that somebody does that. I've known too many smokers in my life. They are not looking for matches. They're looking for a lighter. So, all right. Well, Laugh needs attention. Let's see. Who are we talking about? Amy Bradley, of course. That's all I ever talk about. All right. Any other questions you guys might have? I think I answered the ones. So where did she go or what happened? the door is open on the patio, so that's been left open. So I think I'm 2 weeks older than Amy. I'm not someone that gets up every single day and consults a horoscope to tell me how my day is going to go. That's not happening. Do I think that people born under certain signs have similar characteristics? Yes, I do. And Amy and I are a Taurus. I am 2 weeks older to the day of her. Same year, whole 9 yards. And, oh, and you know what? This is 52. This is Amy's skin. Like when people are talking about like how she might be looking nowadays. All right, here's 52. You know, she and I are exactly the same age. I have no makeup on. If she has been in a situation where she's been out in the elements, of course her skin is not, it's going to be weathered more. But I'm just saying, I've got some age on me now. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. So, but I think Amy, I know her to be a considerate person. I know how I am. I would not have woken Brad up to ask him for his lighter. That would have never. I tiptoe around my house here not to wake up people. I had a friend that came and stayed this weekend. I was tiptoeing as to not wake her up in her room. I'm over there like shutting the door very quietly. Do the same thing when my daughter is here. So if Amy wakes up, realizes that she still doesn't have a lighter, but she's like, the stores are probably open. She opens that door up and she's like, I'm coming right back. I'm not even going to bother closing that because you don't want to wake people up. So she thinks, I'm going to run out. I'm going to get that lighter and I'm coming right back. We know that when she walked in, she left her yellow shirt on the chair because when she came, people get that confused all the time too. So let me just clarify that. When they had their formal dinner on Monday night. So that's when you see her in that black pantsuit. It kind of looks like a dress, but it's actually like a jumpsuit. Brad and her go and change clothes. They went to the casino after that. So when she changes clothes, she now has on the blue shorts. She has on a yellow kind of polo type of shirt, but underneath it, she had a white t-shirt cami, the one that would what's the word I want to say? Clip, whatever, fasten down in that area. I don't even know if you can say whatever. Anyway, she had that bodysuit on. As she's up there doing the limbo contest and they're dancing and having a good time, she actually took that yellow shirt even off. So at some point you see her with the yellow shirt on and without the yellow shirt on, but she had the white shirt on underneath. When Ron and Iva decided that they were tired and they were going to bed, Iva gave the yellow shirt back to Amy. So then that's when she didn't want to carry it. She didn't want to have to keep up with it. So she put it back on. When Bruce ran into Amy at 2:20, his description says that Amy was in the blue shorts and the yellow shirt, which is exactly what Brad said. Brad said when she came back to the room, she had the yellow shirt back on. She did not walk back in the room with the blue shorts and just the white shirt with the yellow shirt in her hand. He said she had the yellow shirt on. When he left her on the balcony, she still had the yellow shirt on. So now the door is open. She's probably taken off the yellow shirt. She's laid it on that chair right there. She hustles out the door quietly, thinks that she's going to go get a lighter, figures out that the stores are still not open, probably then goes walking around because what is she doing once again? Looking for a match. Runs into Yellow. We know from previous complaints before the Bradleys ever stepped foot on the Royal Caribbean Rhapsody of the Seas, there are complaints on record of people saying that Yellow kept asking them, trying to get them to meet specifically, like how crazy is that? Specifically at 6 a.m. at the Viking Lounge and was making people feel uncomfortable about it. So the fact that we have it in writing that he had a history of being out there and trying to get people to meet him at 6 a.m. is something. If you don't know all about that, go research that. That's a whole other rabbit hole we can go down. But keep in mind real quick with that story, he should have never, ever been out there at 6 a.m. It was protocol for employees to be in their room at 1 a.m. by 1 a.m. and they were to stay in until they came out. I think the time is 8 a.m. the next morning. So the fact that he was actually talking to people and trying to get them to meet at 6 a.m. and it's on record from that, why didn't Royal Caribbean already fire him. Because they would have been like, why are you trying to meet people at 6 a.m. when you're supposed to be in your room? But he wasn't fired. He still had a job. He was still learning. So my guess is that he was out there probably expecting to meet someone. I do not believe he was meeting Amy. People that say he was leaving the room to meet Amy, I don't believe you at all. I'm not saying that you are wrong. I'm just saying I don't agree with you. There's no way at all that Amy ever left that room to meet anybody. And I mean anybody. She's not inconsiderate. She was on that vacation with her family. She loves her family deeply. She was asking Brad about what they were going to do once they got off the ship in just a few hours. So she did not just bail on her family and decide she's going to go hang out with strangers now at 5:30, 5:45 in the morning. I guess it's 5:45 when she actually left the room. She's not doing that. If you think that, you literally just don't know Amy. Amy's not doing that. So she had to leave that room for something. And I think if she's figured out the stores are closed, she still can't buy a lighter. She didn't know the rules about the stores being closed when you're in port. And she starts going on search for matches again. If she saw him, she'd been hanging out with him. They were hanging out the night before. They hung out. He was the bass player. They were requesting songs for him. Her guard was down with him. I don't go and hang out with strangers, but if I have continued to go to a restaurant and I know the bartender or I know the wait staff or something, I'm going to gravitate to them because I at least feel like I somewhat know them. They're not complete strangers, but, you know, and if he said, what are you doing out here? And she said, I'm looking for matches. The stores are closed. I can't buy a lighter. Oh, follow me. Bound to be some there up there in that Viking lounge, I bet. I bet we can find some up there. That's why she would have gotten on that elevator. That's why she would have followed him right on up there. And then, of course, Lori and Crystal were out there. It's Lori that actually saw them going up on the elevator. She says that Amy's not in distress. They're not on the elevator fighting. She's not being hit. So she's going willingly. That tells me she was going for something with him. Why else would she be on an elevator? Because he's getting her something that she needed. I've always said, must have been a ginger ale. Must have been something to up for her stomach, because I didn't know the story about Bruce. But now I know the story about Bruce. Now I know she didn't have a lighter at 2:20. Now I know that's what she was searching for, and you're not going to convince me otherwise. But once he got up there in that Viking lounge, when he gets off the elevator, that's when Elizabeth Lewis saw them actually get off the elevator. So you have somebody confirming they were on the elevator from the outside, looking in, and then you had another witness on the inside that saw them actually get off the elevator. He looks over there, makes her a drink, and then he says, come on, and they go through those elevator doors. So I'm thinking at that point, he's like, couldn't find any matches, but come on, keep following me. They go through those doors, which leads to that elevator that's only for staff. That elevator is not for the public. He took her through those doors and used an elevator out there rather than getting back on the elevator that they came up on. Why would you do that? You just came up on that elevator. Y'all are clearly still looking for something and going something if you do not get back on the elevator that you were just on. So, do I think she's alive? I don't know. I just hope and pray that she is. I mean, you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. Some days I'm like, God, it's terrible to say, but I don't like the idea of her being in a bad situation and being tortured for all of these years either. So my heart goes both ways. I'm not going to stop looking for her. I'm not going to stop helping this family. All of them need, Amy included. If Amy is no longer with us, that still does not mean that she doesn't deserve justice, and for the people that did whatever they did to her to be gone. To be held accountable, not to be gone. So, any new leads? Yeah. But that's the kind of stuff that, there's one that we're working on. We've been working on for the past 2 weeks. So, we're trying to get an answer about that. We also have some things happening with the government regards to meetings that have been happening the past month. But we have kind of taken a step back from sharing that kind of stuff on social media because while it is good to update and have you all out there trying to help us, because we certainly are better, with you than without you, sometimes I think we're putting out too much information and, let's be honest, not everybody that's following me is actually a fan. You know what I mean? We know that there's fake accounts out there. We know that they use those fake accounts. And so we're being a little bit more limited right now with what we're sharing with the public. But yeah, there's great stuff going on with the government. And if you don't know that part of the process, we have asked the FBI for a new team. We've been asking for a new team. That hasn't been happening. But after going through that process, figured out that what we really need is for the case to be handed over to HSI. The reason why the FBI doesn't really do much is because they don't have jurisdiction. Those ships fly flags of convenience, and they're not in American soil. So even if you probably heard that one FBI agent say that if Yellow was to step foot in America, we could do something. His daughter lives here. His granddaughter lives here. He does not come to America. He stays in Grenada where, we can't get to him. But HSI would have different parameters to work with and work around. So that is where we're at currently, is trying to we actually don't want the FBI to just completely go away. We would like for them to work in tandem, but we want HSI to take the lead. And if you don't know, the reward by the FBI did get increased when people are like, oh yeah, she's not here. Nobody can prove that. And so if the FBI truly felt that she had unalived herself or even accidentally fallen off the ship, the case would have been closed back in 1998. They all have said she did not fall accidentally, and she did not. There's no evidence whatsoever to support a theory that she would have unalived herself, which is why the case is still active and open 28 years later. The FBI would have closed it a long time ago if they really didn't think that she's out there somewhere. Whether she is alive or not, we can only pray. But they don't believe that she jumped or that she got pushed or anything else nefarious like that. So anyway, so that is the update on that. Grind did a great job the other night with his videos and putting that up. So I just thought I would jump on here to see if there's anything else that I could help with. Even if they don't have the same spec, it doesn't mean, no, I'm saying, but there's definitely people that are definitely 100% against the Bradley family. Not everybody is. Some people like to speculate and come up with this theory and that theory, and that's all fine. We get it. But the ones that are actually out, the ones that say that Ron, offered his daughter up as a sacrifice, that person's against us. Like, that's crazy, insane. That's not even a theory worth discussing. That's disgusting, actually, is what that is. So those kind of people that try to throw you off and take you down that rabbit hole are the people that were like, we're not interested in updating them. So we've been a little more closed-minded. She was also 23, way above the age they normally take. It's just my opinion. I'm not sure if they even knew how old she was, who knows? And she's teeny tiny. Yeah, he's on a watch list. And Amy is also yellow carded with Interpol as well. But not that I think she's out there going by Amy Bradley if she, wherever she is at. Let's see. HSI, yeah, HSI is Homeland Security. Just looking for a match. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking now that I know that. And yeah, she didn't go overboard. I just saw that one because why did the dad hear a noise? And that's where he last. So he woke up around 5:30. He looked over, he saw her legs, knew she was out there, and then he said, yeah, something. It probably, even if you're considerate and you are closing that door quiet as you possibly can, there's still some noise. So I think most likely it was the door that was closing that he heard, and that's kind of what spurred him to wake up again. And then he realizes she's not over there and that door is open, and he's like, what? So again, nobody said, well, we just assumed she went out to go smoke. That's never, ever been a theory. No one's ever said that. So even though they had designated smoking areas, they clearly were and had been smoking on that balcony. As to why no one said, well, when we saw she was gone, we just assumed she went to the smoking lounge. Nobody said that. She went out looking for something. If you listen to Midnight Mystery Archive, he did a great job here in May and June and went really in depth. So if you have not found Midnight Mystery Archive yet, find him. It's midnightmysteryarchive.com. Once you go there, all of his options for how you can listen to his podcast series are there. So whether you listen through Amazon or Apple or YouTube, they're all there. He has a 12-part series that he walks through. And what he did in addition to that was the 12-part series was coming out every Friday. So there's 1 through 12 of that. But in the midst of that, he was also doing Witness Wednesday. And so there are episodes with the people that have been interviewed over the years, but then their commentary gets edited out and you don't hear their full story, like Judy Moore or David Carmichael, Chris Fenwick. There's so many that he did. Go and listen to those Witness Wednesdays and hear their full stories without being edited. That will give you a whole different appreciation for this case, because you're going to be, I didn't know that. It's because when they speak, they don't give them the whole platform. Think about that. The Netflix show was less than 3 hours long, but think about how many people got interviewed and how long they got interviewed. You know, Tom, again, going back to her boyfriend, Tom was dating her from December of 97 through when she went to the cruise. They had plans to go see David Letterman and had already purchased tickets for when they got back. He worked at Ruth Chris with Amy. He's with her, 3-4 times a week. He can speak to exactly what her mentality was. She had just gotten her apartment in January, her very first apartment on her own. When she came back from college, she was living in an apartment and then a house, but had roommates. So she's now just gotten her first apartment all on her own. She had a dog named Bailey already that her parents had given her in 1996. That was her college graduation gift. But when Iva and Amy take Bailey to the boarder, who's going to keep Bailey while she goes on the cruise, the boarder sees that Bailey is this American bulldog and is like, oh my God, we're having trouble trying to find a home for this other puppy American bulldog, which was Daisy. And so then Amy and Iva were like, well, let's look at her. So the owners of that shop took Amy and Iva back, and Amy met Daisy, the puppy, and on the spot came back out there and signed all the paperwork to pick Daisy up with Bailey when she returned on Monday. So she had even gotten a new puppy. So she's got a new apartment. She's got her dog that she already loves. He's a puppy technically. He's less than 2 years old, but now she's getting a brand new puppy also when she comes home, and she was starting a brand new job on Monday. So she still was going to be working at Ruth Chris, but she had landed a director of marketing and advertising that she was starting on Monday. She's got a guy. She's dating him. They're going off and doing everything. She's being treated like a little princess, going anywhere and everywhere with him. So things are good for Amy. Really, really good. She is not unhappy. She is not sad. There's normally, after someone unalives themselves and people want to say, well, you don't know what you're talking about, Sandy. Let me tell you something. It's not anybody's business, but let me just say, my grandfather unalived himself. My oldest cousin unalived himself. And our best friend, Mark, who was also Brad's best friend, played in Amy's Brothers Band. The name of the band is called Amy's Brothers Band. That's the literal name of it. But Mark and Brad were in the band, and Mark unalived himself. We're very familiar and up close and personal on people taking their lives. And every one of those and every other story we've ever told, there's some other underlying story that you find out after the fact, whether it was in debt, gambling issues, relationship problems, going through whatever that reason is. To this day, it's now 2026. There's nothing that has ever come up about Amy that was going on in her life that would have been like, oh, well, that might have been what? No, the girl was literally living her dream life. New place, new job, great boyfriend. And again, Netflix doesn't even speak to him. He was interviewed. He flew out there. He was interviewed for over 5 hours. He went back to Curacao and searched with the family. He quit his job to keep searching for Amy, but he didn't make the Netflix show. That's because that show had an agenda. They had ratings. They had sensationalism that they were looking for. And Amy just having a normal life with a normal, boyfriend, that there was nothing that didn't fit the narrative. So instead, talking to ex-girlfriends from years ago made the show. That's wild. Anyway, so that's that. Checked into Venezuela. We checked, we check every lead, every single lead that comes in. So everywhere across this entire world, we check into it. All right. Sorry, I'm just reading through these real quick. With her family and vacation sounds. Oh, yeah. Yeah. They have pictures. Yes. Kat, just a little bit. I hate even talking about this woman because she's such a... But Kat says in that show that she lost touch with Amy, and after they broke up, and it was just, they just went their separate ways. That's all a lie. And if y'all don't know Kat and Amy, and you're just someone watching it on your sofa, and you're believing it because it's portrayed as a documentary, and you take that information as fact, I'm like, wow, that's how it happens. That's how quickly a story can get created, and then everybody believes it because they're like, it has to be true. It has to be true. Kat worked with Amy and Tom. Kat worked at Ruth Chris. When Kat found out that we were now putting Tom out there to do the interview with Nate Eaton, and if you haven't seen that, Nate Eaton, go on YouTube, Nate Eaton, Eaton, and then Tom, boyfriend of Amy Bradley. You can watch that because we did that after the fact. Once we knew that he got cut and was not used at all, Nate Eaton did that separate interview so that we could get that on record. But yeah, Kat worked with Tom. Tom was Kat's boss. In October of 1997, so 5 months before Amy gets on that cruise ship, Kat, who she hasn't dated in years, but who is still stalking her, shows up at Amy's softball, like the end of the year, or end of season, I guess, banquet, and smacked Amy. That was in October of 1997. In January of 1998, when Tom and Amy are right here at Caddy's is literally right around the corner from me still, they're in there because Amy liked to go in and do karaoke, and Kat came in there in January of 98 and started an argument with Amy when she was out with Tom. So she had some obsession with Amy, don't really know what, but she did. And all of that saying that she lost contact with Amy, she hadn't talked to Amy in years, all of that is a lie. Every single bit of that is a lie. She was still she got a job at Ruth Chris because Amy did. She was working at Ruth Chris. She had smacked Amy in October. She's still confronting her in January, 2 months before she goes on the cruise. And Tom was her boss. And she lied and said, I don't know who Tom is. That's got to be a beard. It was her boss. Okay, anyway, I'm not going to get angry today. I'm going to go work. Kat gets me fired up because everybody just believed Kat and didn't question her and didn't act like, wait a minute, is she telling the truth? Y'all, I say y'all, I don't mean you specifically. I just mean people in general believed that bullshit and ran with it. And it's not true. She knew exactly where Amy was still working with her, and she damn sure knew who Tom was because Tom was both of their bosses. All right, so maybe later her story was fishy. Nope, no doubt. But if your side was portrayed different, why do you think hers wasn't? Here's why. I'll tell you why. Because she's never come forward and said they got my story wrong and I didn't say that. And I'll agree with you, Emily, on that. I agree with you on that. We know that Chris Fenwick did not say what he said, but he, bless his heart, because he's a videographer, he's the only one that thought to record his own interview. So when he watched the Netflix show and it said that he had given the tape to the FBI, he immediately was like, I never said that. I never said that. I never gave that tape to the FBI. He went back to his original interview that he had actually recorded and he sent it to Iva and he says, I did not give that tape to the FBI. They have edited. And he was able to go back and find the 3 parts that they used to create that soundbite to say, this is what I actually said. I said I gave the tape to Mike McCord. Mike McCord then gave it to Ship Security, and Ship Security was supposed to give it to the FBI, but it never made it to the FBI. That didn't happen. They made it sound like Chris Fenwick said, I just gave the tape to the FBI. So we can prove that. But Chris Fenwick spoke up and said, I didn't say that. There's parts of that show that Iva is going, I did not say that. I did not say that, but she can't prove it because she didn't think to record her interviews. So it is just hearsay. But if Kat or Molly had said anything that they knew they didn't say, wouldn't you reach out and say, just FYI, I didn't say that? I know that's probably upsetting you. So I just want you to know I didn't actually say that. No, that hasn't happened. So the other people that are portrayed in there, Judy Moore came back and said, that's not what I said. And they didn't say this and they didn't say that. And they cut this and they cut that. There's nothing that's come from Kat or Molly. So are you right? It could have happened, Emily? Yeah. But they haven't bothered to correct it, or they're not out here on social media going, hey, FYI, I just want to tell you that I didn't say that. That's not happening. So yeah. The whole Molly thing coming forward is, it's not Odyssey. Yeah, the thing about Molly is very upsetting. And I'll tell you that Iva reached out to Molly again last week and just said, Molly, with a question mark, because Molly was friends with the Bradleys all the way up until the Netflix show. And it's like, what? Like the year before the Netflix show happened. So you got to remember the Netflix show came out in 2025. So they were recording it and doing all of that in 2024. So in April of 2023. So we're literally from 1998 all the way up to 2023. Molly even spent the entire day, not an hour, the entire day at the house with Ron and Iva for Easter in 2023. It's a holiday. And Molly is there with just Ron and Iva for the whole entire day. They love Molly. They have no issues with Molly. They say that Amy loved Molly, that Amy was remorseful about cheating on Molly, all of those things. So why did Molly, after all of this time, stop being friends with the Bradleys? And by the way, they had never seen The Message in the Bottle. From 1998, Molly showed up at the Bradleys' house within a couple of weeks of Amy going missing, and that's when Molly brought the postcard. Remember the postcard that says, wish you were here, and all of that? So Molly comes and brings the Bradleys the postcard, but doesn't bring the message in the bottle. Nothing. The reason why we even have a copy of The Message in the Bottle and know what it actually says and that it's not a love letter is because in November, something was just not adding up with the whole Molly thing. And I'm like, it's so wild. Why was she friends with the Bradleys and close to them? And then all of a sudden, once she does the documentary, she cuts them off, doesn't even speak to them ever again. Like, she's gone from their lives, and they already have enough trauma that they deal with. So having Molly holding on to Amy's friends and people that she cared about and loved, and now Molly's just gone. It's like something weird. I'm like, let me see that message in the bottle. And I was like, I don't have the message. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't have the message in the bottle? She's like, we've never seen it. We've never ever seen it and had a copy of it. So I told Iva to tell the producers of the show that we had leads coming in and we needed samples of Amy's handwriting. And from what we know, the message in the bottle might be one of the last things that Amy wrote. So we'd like to get a copy of it. So we just got a copy of the message in the bottle in November. Never came from Molly. Why would she not share that? Why did she wait until a Netflix show to put something out like that and then portray it as if it was a love letter? It's not a love letter. It's not a love letter at all. I have the letter. I've read it. It's not a love letter. She never says, I love you. She never says, I'm in love with you. She doesn't even say, love ya. She never says that. She says, I'd drive 400 miles to get the friendship back that we once had. So I believe what Amy's writing. I don't believe what people tell me. I believe it's in her own handwriting. She says, Amy and Molly were childhood friends. They had been on swim team together. They had gone to camps together. They were childhood friends that now at college have hooked up one night. But then Amy, being your typical, let's be honest, being your typical 20-year-old that's out here finding herself, she moves on. Molly didn't. Molly had bigger feelings for Amy, I think. But Amy moves on and starts dating someone else, and Molly is not speaking to her. But Amy proceeds to fix the friendship, though, of like, we're not together, but we've been friends since childhood. Like, one night of kissing shouldn't keep us from remaining friends. So that's what she's pleading in that letter with Molly, saying, I want our friendship back. But anyway, it got portrayed the way it got portrayed in the Netflix show, and none of us knew until we actually got a copy of the letter, and we didn't get that until, what about the letter to her ex about saving her? So, Elizabeth, if you go and, again, now this is speculation. If Amy walks through my door later today and says, nope, it was something else, so be it. But I am one that tries to look for connections, and I kept thinking about the message in the bottle, and I'm like, I'm in marketing and advertising. I've done that for 28 and a half years, and I'm like, when did the message in the bottle book came out? You know when it came out? April 1st. April 1st of 1998. So I would bet you $1 million that I don't have, that if you were in Barnes & Noble or in Books A Million or something like that, don't you bet that they had an end cap set up somewhere promoting this new book that was coming out, that was a big deal back then because we all heard about it. And they might have had some promotional items that were like, sign up now, pre-register for this book. They used to do it all the time. I used to do, well, anyway, that's a different story. But they would have had promotional. So she might have picked up a message in the bottle. And remember, Molly does say that Amy had tried to contact her for the past 14 months and Molly was not receptive. She says that she's been writing letters. She's not replying to Amy. So if Amy is somewhere and saw the message in the bottle and thought, because I'm a creative person too, maybe that would get her attention. Because it's different. It's not a same old letter that I've been writing for the past 14 months that Molly has completely ignored. Now I'm going to do a message in the bottle and see if that resonates more, because I want my friend. She's very clear in her letter about how much she misses Molly being in her life and being her friend. So if she sends her that message in the bottle, well, it's a message in the bottle. And I just think it's the convenience of the words of, it's a message in the bottle. So it's, the whole concept of a message in a bottle is putting it out to the sea and hoping it reaches the person, and that, they're going to read that letter and they're going to read it the way that you want them to, and that y'all are going to reconcile. That's the way I read the message in the bottle now. Now that I have the whole letter and I read it in its entirety from top to bottom and not just little pieces here and there that conveniently made the Netflix show. When you read the whole letter top to bottom, it sounds like a friend that has found a very unique, credible way to reach out to this friend that she's missing desperately in her life, and is trying to say, come on, let's be friends again. We've been friends forever. Like, come on, come save me. So I think it's the convenience of the words. And again, I will give you credit, Elizabeth, that if you haven't read the whole letter and you don't think about the fact that the Titanic movie had just come out, so some people, she had gone to see a Titanic movie with Tom, and they thought maybe that could have been a reason. But once I saw that the book, Message in a Bottle, was coming out on April 1st, I think it's more likely that it's tied to that. That's my theory. Don't know if I'm right or not. Why don't you go call them and ask them to join the live? I just said, we've been trying to reach out to Molly because we don't have a clue. I don't know Molly, by the way. Don't know Molly, was not friends with Molly. And even though I worked with Ruth Chris, I didn't know Kat. I don't know them. Now, Stacy, who you see working with me a lot, Stacy knows all of them. Stacy worked at the Applebee's actually with Amy, and she knows Kat, all of that. I don't personally, but none of us, there were other things about Kat. I mean, even when you read the letter, Amy wrote Molly a letter in October of 98, and actually, I take that back. Sorry, I just said that wrong. Amy wrote Molly a letter 2 weeks before the message in the bottle. So let's go to that real quick. Amy wrote Molly a letter on, oh my God, don't quote me on this and go out there and say I'm confused in the story. I'd have to go and look, but I think it's February 2nd. We can look back and find out. Anyway, it's in February, and it is a few weeks before Amy then goes and writes the message in the bottle to Molly. That letter that Amy wrote to Molly just a few weeks before, she's telling Molly all about meeting Tom, that they've been dating since December of 97. She's talking about how wonderful that relationship is. And she, in that letter that she writes to Molly in February, she tells Molly about what Kat did to her in October. So as a mother, if I read in my own child's handwriting that one of her ex-girlfriends who's continuing to like stalk her has now shown up to her softball banquet and smacked her in front of everybody, I'm not going out trying to be friends with Kat. And maybe that's me. Maybe y'all would extend the olive branch. I'm not. We also know because Tom has shared the story about Kat then showing up at Caddy's in January. So Kat's not someone that any of us are looking to be friends with. She wasn't nice to Amy. We have three of Kat's ex-girlfriends that have come to us telling us all about Kat and who she is as a person and talking about her drug addictions and talking about her being an alcoholic and talking about how she used all of them and that they have nothing to do with her because of those things. So Kat's not somebody that we're out here looking to have a connection with. But Molly was different. Molly was friends with everyone. Molly had not done anything to Amy. Molly was loved, and I mean, again, it's Easter and Molly is at the Bradley's house all day long. So Iva 1000% has tried to connect with Molly saying, where did you go? What happened? Like they have never had an argument. They've never had a fight in all of those years. And then once she did that documentary, and now after we saw the documentary, I was like, well, now I know why Molly stopped communicating with us. She hasn't told Iva that, but that's the only thing that we can assume. If you just drop off the face of the earth and you're nowhere around anymore. But Iva just texted Molly again last week. She sent Molly a message and all it says is Molly with a couple question marks because she's like, she has no idea why Molly did what she did. None. So we don't know. We have no idea. After she did the documentary, Molly vanished from the face of the earth. She contacted the Bradleys first off saying, hey, is this real? People are reaching out to me saying that they're doing a documentary. And do you know about this? Which, of course, Iva and Brad said, yeah, we do. We've talked to them. And if they want to talk to you, go right ahead. Molly said, no, I don't want to do it. It's too personal and it hurts too much. And I'm not going to do that documentary. So Iva and Ron are not going to make her do it. You know, if someone says they really don't want to do it, like, okay, but we're trying to find Amy. So then she comes back and says, all right, now I am going to do the documentary. And they're like, okay, no problem. Ron and Iva and Brad only want to find Amy. So talk to whoever you want to talk to. They don't care. They just want to find Amy. And then once Molly had gone to New York with Kat and some other friends and did the actual interviews, Molly's never contacted them again. So Molly, that's a good one. I'd love to know why she did that. Ivana, Brad said he knew his sister was more lesbian and that she was probably going to end up with a woman. Well, I don't know. But we don't care. Could care less. She could be in a three-way with two other lesbians for we don't care. But Amy came out in 1995, and when she came out, she didn't come home, like in that Netflix documentary, Sarah Luck says that she came home with Amy to tell her parents. That's all a lie. Sarah Luck did not come to the Bradleys' home with Amy to tell her parents. That's all a lie. That never happened. And you know what's crazy about that is that, one, is that a statement that got edited and Sarah didn't really say that, but it's out there? Okay. But Sarah is one of the Bradleys' clients because the Bradleys still work to this day. Even in their 70s, they're still working. And Sarah is one of their clients. Do you think, and they've ran into Sarah at the grocery store and seen her, do you think that Sarah's gone, by the way, I know that said that in that documentary, but I never said that. I never said that I came home with Amy, so I don't know where that came from. So anyway, that kind of stuff did not happen. But when Amy came home and she said, I like girls too, were her exact words. She did not come out and say, I only like girls, I don't like boys. Never happened. What she said was, I like girls too. Those were her exact words. She didn't even use the word bisexual because guess what? That wasn't a big word back in 1995. Get my years. In 1995, she did not say, I'm bisexual. She said, I like girls too. And in that 3-year period, she does date other girls. It wasn't just Molly. It wasn't just Kat. She dates other women as well. And she also dates other men. So Tom is not the only guy that she was dating, but she had been dating him from December of 97 through March of 98. And they had the sweetest little love story. So you can say that I thought that she was going to be a lesbian and maybe she would, but Tom had put that girl up on a pedestal and was treating her like a complete princess. I mean, they're going everywhere and anywhere. I mean, going Nags Head one weekend, DC another weekend. He's taking her to the theater. He's taking her to nice restaurants. He's taking her to shows. He's buying her tickets to go to New York. If you look in the photos that we put up of Amy's new apartment, like Iva and Ron had helped Amy with getting most of the stuff that was in that apartment. If you look in the bathroom, there's 2 toothbrushes. You know why? That's Tom's. So if Amy was dating other people and she wouldn't have Tom's toothbrush in her new apartment. So they were tight and they were doing well. And Tom was devastated. Obviously, that's why he went back searching for her. If she was just some girl that he didn't really care about or whatever, he'd have just moved on. He went back to Curacao searching for her. He quit his job to continue searching for her. She was not just a fling. So I don't know. She liked both. And she was having a really good time with Tom. So I don't know. Don't know. I know. Showed Tom in the doc. Just go to Nate Eaton. Go to YouTube and Google, search for Nate Eaton, Eaton, and then put in Tom, Amy Bradley's boyfriend. You can watch the whole entire interview that he did, and that really shows you the relationship that they were having, but I'll also send you back to Midnight Mystery Archive over there. You can listen to the whole 12-part series that really breaks it down and tells you all the details that you don't get in a 2-hour show, but you'll also then get the individual interviews with these witnesses, and you hear the whole entire story. You don't just get 30 seconds. You get the whole story. If you go and listen to Judy Moore's story, everybody after, they were like, we've never heard all of that. It's because it gets edited. And you don't. So check out midnightmysteryarchive.com. Once you go there, just choose the way you listen to podcasts. There's the Amy Bradley series, 1 through 12, and then there's all the Witness Wednesdays in there as well. Amy didn't even look 23. As someone said, it's a known fact most young girls get trafficked, not 23-year-olds or 30-year-olds. Well, first of all, it's not a fact. I mean, there's certainly older women that have been trafficked. So to come on here and claim that and say it's never happened, that's a lie. Now, do they generally go for younger? But Amy was teeny tiny, small. Look at her pictures from back then, not just the ones on the cruise ship when she's dressed up and she has makeup on. Look at the other ones. She was not looking like she was, I mean, she's young looking. Go look at her. Go look at her pictures leading up. She was tiny. How was she not tiny? She's 100 pounds. She was 5'6", if that. She was very tiny. Well, Ivana, do you know where Amy is? Because you certainly know a lot about her, telling us what she looked like and what she was all about. So do you know where she's at? Are you one of those people that I say, I don't like coming on here and doing this stuff because you like to turn everything around? She was tiny. She was super tiny. She was 5'6", weighed just over 100 pounds. She was super tiny. I know, going off on rumors. Yeah. I try not to block people, but, here we go. You can have an opinion, but your opinion should be based on facts. And the facts are, she was 5'6", and she weighed just over 100 pounds. She's tiny. All right. Well, what would Amy's friend Molly bring to the table at this point? Nothing, obviously, in regards to, we do not think that there's any, let's be real clear about that. We do not feel there's any connection whatsoever to Amy's disappearance involving Molly. So we've seen people go, was Molly on the ship? Was Kat on the ship? No, we don't believe that. But I think it's more of the, it's just interesting and kind of weird. Like, that happens in March of 98. So we know that tragedy. But then, the Bradleys have had to keep moving forward while continuing to work. Brad dropped out of school for a bit, but he did go back to school and finished, he's got his career going. The Bradleys have to keep going. They're not filthy rich. They don't get to just sit at home, and spend an abundance of money constantly looking for Amy. They're in their 70s and they're still both working full time. I think Iva's 73 and he's 75. They're still working full-time jobs. So I think it's the part that Molly was still there. Molly's at their house 2 weeks after Amy goes missing. And she's been there consistently. And like I said before, even spending the holidays, this isn't just a quick drive-by, say hi, and move on. She spent the entire day on Easter with them, with just the three of them. Brad came over at some point, but really it's the three of them all day. Why would she stop being friends with the Bradleys after all of these years? And it's Amy that remember in the Netflix show, she's portrayed as that Amy's the one that she loves, right? Where did Molly go? Why is she not talking to Iva? Why is she not talking to Ron? Why is she not talking to Brad after all of these years? So she brings nothing to the table in regards to how to find Amy, but it's just one of those storylines that kind of segues off of their original tragedy of further loss later on. Somebody, Molly, that they held such an endeared role to have, infiltrating their family on a regular basis, dropped off the face of the earth and never speaks to them again. Nothing. There's nothing. She just vanished. So, yeah. So that must have been something that Kat told her. The three girlfriends of Kat that have come to us saying, hey, y'all don't know us, but we are watching what Kat is doing. We're watching her videos. Let me tell you who she really is and that kind of thing. They have all said, and again, this is pure speculation because I don't talk to Molly, but the girlfriends said they can't believe that Molly would ever have anything to do with Kat after what Kat already did to Molly. I don't know that story. And I'm like, what? They were like, yes, this whole situation went down. Molly ended up having to stop being friends with Kat. They hadn't talked in years because of the same typical behavior by Kat of what Kat would do. So these ex-girlfriends who have been through the ringer with Kat have said, we're clueless on why Molly would ever even allow Kat back into her life. So That's a whole part of the story we don't know. We have no clue on that. Doesn't matter. Doesn't bring Amy back. It's the whole thing that we've been saying all along. Who Amy slept with and who she likes has nothing to do with why she's missing. Those people were, Tom was not on the cruise. Molly wasn't on the cruise. Even an ex-girlfriend like Kat from years ago was not on the cruise. So why Amy's sexuality has even become a topic of conversation is only because the producers of Ample Entertainment sensationalized that story to go sell a Netflix show, a documentary later on to Netflix. So that's a why. And people are like, well, why hasn't it come up before? The Bradleys were trying to hide it. Hide what? That she liked both girls and guys? Who cares? It is 2025 when that show was coming out. You think anybody's worried about who likes who in these days and times? No, nobody cares. But it had nothing to do with it. That's why, you know what? I'll prove my point. In any of those other shows that were going, all of those other, before Netflix, did they ever talk about Tom? Were the Bradleys ever on any of those shows talking about Tom and this amazing boyfriend? And no, because Tom had nothing to do with why she went missing either. So it wasn't like they were hiding that part of life. They didn't even talk about Tom, and that's who she was dating. They literally don't care about who she dated and who she loved and who she wanted to be with or who she was going to be when she got back from the cruise ship. They don't care. It has nothing to do with why she went missing. So they never talked about anybody. It wasn't they were hiding it. They were talking about what was happening on the ship, because that actually matters. What happens on the cruise ship actually matters, because that has something to do with why Amy went missing. I believe they did that to support the suicide theory. I don't know. I must have missed something back then. Oh, I saw it. Why would they leave her out? Well, clearly, after we saw that Tom did get cleared out and we saw how they focused, there's 30 minutes of that show about a woman that's missing. Think about that. The show is a little over 2 hours, less than 3 hours long, I think. And 30 minutes of it is focused on ex-girlfriends that have nothing to do with why Amy went missing. That's wild behavior. So I think once they hung on that theory that people didn't know that Amy was bisexual. No, the rest of the world didn't know that Amy was bisexual. The people here, we all know. We all knew. It wasn't a shock to any of us. So we weren't watching that show having the same reactions that y'all were. When we saw Kat, when we saw Molly, we already knew Amy was bisexual. We had known for years. That wasn't a shock to us. But people that don't know her on the outside watching it are like, oh, I've never heard this before. This must be why she jumped, because her family was hiding it. No, because it had nothing to do with why she went missing. We weren't talking about Tom either. But we had to after the fact just to prove a point. So, okay. Wonder why the ex-girlfriends felt the need to disclose all that information? There's only one that disclosed information, really. The other ones are college and are just talking about who Amy was. And Kat is on record saying her biggest regret in life is that she didn't dump Amy first. So she's always had like this vendetta that Amy dumped her. And so that's why we think she was just like obsessed with that Amy dumped her and she didn't get to dump Amy instead. There's a picture up of the three Kat ex-girlfriends all got together and like compared stories. And they have put it up on there. And after Kat saw it, Kat blocked all of them. But they're like, yeah, Kat didn't want us telling the truth. Kat doesn't want us to come on to her and tell everybody who she really is. I think Kat liked getting a free trip to New York. That's what I think. So, and I think she liked being in that position of where she could talk bad about Amy and the Bradleys because she never got the chance to dump Amy. So, that is a theory. That is speculation. That is just me saying what I feel. Don't know that for sure. Can't go and, say that. Do you think the cruise ship captain knew what was going on? Don't know, but do I think that he immediately went into protection of Royal Caribbean? Absolutely. We do know now that he is the one, Kirk Detweiler, is the one that went and told Steve Smith to remove all video footage of Amy. Now, they did not have cameras. They had live where they could like look into different areas, but he said anything that would have her, pictures, videos, to destroy it. So did he know what was going on? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. But the fact that he immediately went into damage control points more towards that mentality of being a staff member. You're protecting your boss. You're protecting your paycheck. Just like the security that was on that ship. They are not real paid cops that are stepping in to protect you on that cruise ship. They are simply paid, they're mall security. And I don't mean to be offensive, but that's what they are. They are mall security. They are paid by the mall. So the security on the ship is paid by the ship. So they're there trying to calm things down, move things along. Remember, they don't have the act comes in later in 2010. So in 1997, 1998, when all of this stuff is going on, they don't even have to report it. They don't have to report any type of assault at all. Physical, sexual, someone's raped, someone's missing, someone's been burglarized. None of that stuff was being reported back then. So you, as a passenger, you're like, I got to go find the security because they're going to be on my side. No, they're not. They're being paid by Royal Caribbean. So I think their job was to, as Kirk Detweiler said, the truest statement that he has said was cruise goes on. And that's what he had 24 other people to entertain. He could not be bothered with the one that was missing. I think that's an accurate statement. And I think that's probably what happened, is that he got wrapped up into that. He was young and dumb. I would hope and pray that he's a different person now. You know, he's married. He has his own children. It was disgusting to watch him on the Netflix show still talking like that, but he was honest. His honesty is disturbing, right? His honesty throws everybody off, but his honesty was an accurate assessment of what was the mentality of what was going on that boat. That's what the Bradleys were screaming. You know, if they had not gone and forced the FBI to get back on that boat on Thursday, think about that. This is the last thing I'm going to say, guys, and I do have to go. But remember, all of this happens on Tuesday morning. So it's 5:45 that Ron is waking up and sees that she's not there. She was just there. She's not. He goes out. He looks for her close to an hour. When he's walking back to his room, he sees Lou Costello. That's the head of security. He even tells Lou right then, hey, and he's not alarmed. He's not in there running going, my daughter's missing. My daughter. No. But as a parent, and you know that feeling of she's 23. I'm not trying to get too crazy, but I've been out here and I've looked in all of the areas that she should have been. And she's not there. And he makes the statement and says, I've been looking for my daughter the past hour, but I can't find her. So he goes in, he wakes up Iva. They go to the purser's desk. They're begging for them to make an announcement, begging for them to not put down the gangways. Nothing is heard. They don't make an announcement. They let the gangways down. People then are getting off of the boat. They say, go back to your room. Security is coming to see you. Security does come to their room, and it says then that that's when he learned that a woman was missing. He says it's like 7:33. I think he says that he first learns that Amy's missing. That's a lie. He knew Amy was missing almost an hour ago when Ron told him, because he's standing 30 feet from his door. So the ship's security knew that a woman was missing, did nothing, and then lied on the report and said he didn't find out about it until 7:33. They still don't make an announcement because they say the announcement is going to alarm the other passengers. Just crazy. So they don't do that either. And then they're going to go and they say they're going to search. They come back and say they've searched every nook and cranny, were the exact words that they had. No, they didn't. And by the way, I'm going back real quick. Bruce, the man that came forward saying he saw Amy in that 2 o'clock hour looking for matches. Bruce has also confirmed that his room was never searched between 8:30 and 12:30 on Tuesday morning. He was in his room. They never searched his room. And on Thursday, even when the FBI does come and get on the ship, Bruce's room was never searched on Thursday either. So that's a confirmation from people that that wasn't happening. They can say all day long that they were doing Charlie drills no, they weren't. There's plenty of people that have come forward and said that didn't happen. But my point is, I digress. They've now convinced, they're trying to get the Bradleys off that ship. The Bradleys are their problem at this moment. They don't want to cause chaos for the rest of the 2,400 people. So they're like, she's not on the ship. She's not on the ship. She has to be in the water. They're in complete, imagine that. A mom, a father, and a brother, and Amy's gone. Imagine that mentality of where they're at right now. And so people are kind of directing them. They're like in a fog. They're like, I don't know what's happening type. They're like, she has to be. So they get off the ship because they're kind of being pushed and directed, saying, well, she's not on the ship. And if you keep staying on the ship, you're leaving her behind. They're making them feel that way. So they get off. Of course, they do the largest water search in the history of Curacao at that point. Don't find anything. Nothing of Amy's whatsoever. Not an ID, not floating money, nothing at all. So now, then they find out that the ship really didn't do searches because of what their family is doing back home, and they're getting information, and they're saying, they didn't search the ship. They didn't search the ship. So then they get on a plane, they fly out to whatever. I always get St. Martin and St. Thomas mixed up, so I'm just going to be honest about that. Wherever they flew, they stayed there that night, and then it's on Thursday morning that they then courier out to get back on that ship. The Bradleys are getting on that ship Thursday morning, and the FBI gets on the ship around noon on Thursday. So it's been 54 hours since Lou Costello first learned that Amy went missing. Now we're at Thursday at noon, so we're 54 hours later, and they finally put out that flyer. They put up the flyer on the doors of some of those cabins, so people are now starting to come forward. Because they didn't know on Tuesday, because the ship didn't bother to tell anybody that there was a woman missing. So they don't know on Tuesday, they don't know on Wednesday, but on Thursday, because the FBI is now coming, they put that flyer up on the door and people start coming forward. That's when Lori and Crystal come forward. Lori and Crystal go to their parents and to their aunt and are like, we saw Amy. We saw Amy with Yellow and at this point, they don't know her time frame. They don't know. And they're like, we saw her. We saw her with Yellow. She was going up with the elevator. It was close to 6. The aunt says, go and tell security. They went and tell the security. The Bradleys are on the boat and the FBI is on the boat on Thursday when these girls have now gone to security. And did the security come and tell the Bradleys or the FBI about these witnesses coming forward about what they saw? No. So that tells you they were in damage control and they were trying to keep that calm and they didn't want other guests disturbed because they did not go and tell the FBI that Lori and Crystal had come forward, nor did they even bother to tell the Bradleys. When Brad and Iva are out Friday morning at like 3:30, just walking the ship, trying to retrace Amy's steps, trying to think about like what she might have seen, what could have happened and all of that, they accidentally, by chance, by the grace of God, whatever you want to say, they then come in there and they saw the Bradleys and they're like, well, yeah, we went and told them yesterday that we saw Amy. If the Bradleys had not got back on that ship on Thursday, that might have not ever happened. They might have not ever known that Crystal and Lori had seen Amy because the ship certainly didn't tell them. They certainly didn't tell the FBI, so the FBI couldn't tell them either. So anyway, so do I think that was a long way of answering that question of do I think the cruise ship captain knew what was going on? Specifically, I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I can't prove that. He gives me weird vibes for sure. He does definitely say some really horrific things that will make you shake your head, but I don't know. He could have just been doing damage control, trying to get that problem off of the boat, trying to maintain happiness with the other 2,400 guests. So I don't know, but I do know that ship security, for some reason, didn't want to help. He knew Amy was missing at around 6:45 when Ron first told him. And they didn't tell the FBI or the Bradleys that witnesses were now coming forward and that Amy had been seen alive. So they would have let the FBI and the Bradleys get back off that ship on Friday thinking she had never been seen, had the witnesses not found the Bradleys themselves and told them. So anyway, let me look through here really quick. Amy was done. I know. I say the same thing. And you know, we all grow up. I mean, I'm 52. I'm not the same person that I was when I was 22. So I hope and pray that you know, he's a better person now than he was presenting back then. He made a lot of people mad in that doc. I'm not gonna. So how is he not in jail for tampering with evidence? I'm going to assume, let me just scroll back. I'm going to assume that you're talking about Kirk telling them to get rid of the tapes or pictures or anything that was of Amy. He wanted them all deleted. We did not learn that until the end of last year. So that's probably why. If we had known something like that, or the Bradleys had known something like that back then, that would have been great information. But Chris Fenwick knew that that was the case because Steve had told him that. So Chris went back to Steve last year after the Netflix show and got it. And of course, Chris records everything and was able to, he's like, yeah, he told me to get rid of all of it. So he's the one that said that it was Kirk Detweiler, not Kirk himself. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out. I do appreciate it. Especially appreciate Laugh and Grind. He's amazing. He's a great advocate. So keep tuning in and listening to him. And as we get more information, we certainly keep him in the loop. And he's definitely a credible source. If he has put something out there about Amy, I can guarantee you that he has come to Ron and Iva and Brad. And most times even me, even though my opinion on stuff doesn't matter, it's the Bradleys that actually, you know, make the decisions. He'll even run stuff past me just to make sure. So he's definitely a credible source. If you see him reporting on something, you can assume that it's accurate. He doesn't put out anything unless he's run it past us and made sure. And we certainly tell him things because he's a confidant and we can trust him and we know he's got the Bradleys' best interest at heart. So, yep, keep listening to Laugh and Grind. And my last thing I'll just say is we do have a website that has all of this information. But if you go to amybradleyismissing.com, that is our official website. And on there, you will find a link tree. A link tree has links to everything else that we have. We have a supplemental website that talks about real specifics, facts, figures, all that type of thing. And it's called missingamybradley.com. But the link is on our amybradleyismissing.com. So you can, if you go there, you can find everything else is what I'm trying to say. We do have an official Facebook page. We have an official Instagram page. You have Brad's X account. So just so you know, if you are new to us and don't know how we run over here, if there's something to be put out, we allow Brad to post it first over on his X account. And once he has posted it, then we run around and make sure it gets up everywhere else. He's not a social media guy. But if you see something crazy out there and you're wondering if it's true, go check Brad's X account. If Brad hasn't reported on it, it's a good chance that it's either AI or it's not true or what have you. But if you have any tips or any information in regards to Amy, you can send them directly to the amybradleyismissing@gmail.com address. If you go to our website, it has a submit a tip. You can do it that way and fill out that form. You can remain anonymous if you want to. If you want to talk to us, we can do that as well. The reward is up to $100,000 now for so the first person that comes and finally fesses up and gives us the information that we need is the one that will get the deal. So I think that's it. There's other stuff over there on that website that you can check out. But if you have any questions, don't hesitate to send me a direct message. I always look at the messages. If I don't have an answer, I'll tell you I don't have an answer, or I'll try to get you an answer. But don't hesitate. Send me a message here. You can send it to me on Facebook. I don't care. One way or the other, contact me and I will get back to you. Thanks so much for hanging out today, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday. I'll see you soon.